thing makes me like, ugh. But I've always wanted to live in Colorado. It's so beautiful
Well,
there.
George is going to Naropa right now.
He is. I remember you told me he was applying.
Yes,
How's he liking it?
he loves it. He's
Oh,
in his
it's
second
oh
year now.
gosh, it's such a it's like magical.
Yeah.
It's a magical place. Oh, goodness. All right, let's take a deep breath and be patient and know that our technology will work. There we go. Bloop, bloop, bloop. If you could see me project. Let's go, let's go. Let's go, let's go. All right. All right. This happened this morning too, where it was just so slow, and I'm just sitting here, and people I'm sure are just watching me click buttons and sing to myself as we try to get this thing where it's supposed to go. So, and thank you, my friends. There we are. I see us. Sort of. There we go. All right. Oh gosh, I need a haircut so desperately. Okay. So, all right. So, once again, I'm going to do what I did earlier, and that is scroll down so I can see our comments, but not our video because there's a delay between Zoom and the live, and I don't want to be distracted by that. So, I vault. All right. We have somebody watching us. I wonder who it is. Doodly doo. All right. Okay. I know this is so surprising. We're back. We're back for a second conversation today on the If You Could See Me podcast here live on Facebook Live on the If You Could See Me Project Facebook page. So as I said earlier this morning when we were on just like moments ago, really, um, I made the decision to create this sort of designated space every Saturday morning to have these really important conversations because I really want to maintain a level of consistency with the podcast. And so I sent out an invitation to all of our participants, and we had a couple of folks who needed to make this their primary this their day, and so for the only time, this is the only time that this is going to happen. I'm doing two of these in one day because it's important to me to make sure that everybody gets to have their story and to be a part of this. And we have some of the most remarkable, exceptional, awesome, brilliant, accomplished participants in the If You Could See Me project. And so today I could not be more thrilled, especially because our guest is all the way in Colorado, so there was a time difference. So we were able to like really effectively line up these discussions so that they both happened at 10 o'clock. They just are happening at 10 o'clock in different places in the country. So that's awesome. So our guest today is Traci Jones. Traci is a peer recovery specialist, a trauma recovery warrior. She is an advocate for people. She is the founder of Rise Phoenix Rise, an animal assisted therapy organization. She is a thousand other things that I will not encapsulate here effectively. So I will just go ahead and say, welcome, Traci. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Erin.
I'm so happy to see your beautiful smiling face.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, all the
So,
way from Colorado.
all the way from Colorado. So, how are things in Colorado?
They're beautiful,
So beautiful there.
beautiful.
Ugh. How are services different in Colorado than they are here?
Um, Actually, they're quite different. In Virginia, um, I've noticed that the peer movement is much more in Virginia, it's much more, shall I say, active,
Okay.
it seems. Since I've been out here in Colorado, I've had less interaction with peer recovery specialists and um, peer workers in general. I've had less interaction with the people who run like in Virginia, there's Vocal,
Mm-hmm.
and there seems to be more peer run programs. Um, like in Northern Virginia, there's Trillium,
Right.
and in Chesterfield, there's Friends for Recovery, just to name a few.
Right.
Um, there's a plethora of peer run programs. Out here, I have not had very much interaction with peer run programs. Actually, I don't know of very many at all. And
Why do
I
you think that
think
is?
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. It's been a enigma to me.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that it would be the opposite.
Right.
Just, just, just knowing what I know about the two different states,
Right.
I would think it would be the opposite,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not how it is. And
Are there peers working in like the community programs, like peer recovery specialists working in the community programs? Could it be a function of like that there are more resources but they're funded differently and there's not
I'm
individual
not
independent
sure. I can't
organizations?
speak to that. I'm not sure. I know that there are peers working like with mental health partners,
Sure.
which is like kind of like equivalent to community service boards
Mm-hmm.
um, in Colorado. And there are peers working. Like we just had our first live support group
Excuse me.
yes Thursday
Mm-hmm.
at Recovery Cafe um, for Rise Phoenix Rise,
Yeah.
which I was so excited about.
Yeah.
And they had some peer recovery specialists working there at Recovery Cafe, which is a peer run program
Right.
um, here in Colorado. So they do have some peer run programs that do have some peer recovery specialists. I just am not aware of them. And I think a lot of that has to do with the pandemic going on.
Right.
I think that has affected my knowledge base,
Mm-hmm.
because we've been out here and the pandemic hit.
Right.
So I think that has affected my outreach. And so I think that may have skewed my knowledge.
Sure.
And I don't want to speak about Colorado and not say at a um, appropriate things about Colorado because
Sure.
I don't know for sure,
Absolutely.
you
Totally
know,
understand that.
because of the pandemic, and that has skewed my knowledge base.
And that happened, you weren't there for very long before the
Exactly,
pandemic hit,
exactly.
right?
I moved
Right.
out here, things shut down. So
Unbelievable. Um, so tell the audience, the folks who, are not aware, tell the audience about Rise Phoenix Rise.
okay, Rise Phoenix Rise is an animal assisted wellness program that I envisioned. Well, there's two components to it. It's peer run
Mm-hmm.
and it's animal assisted activities.
Right.
So they're both evidence based practices,
Mm-hmm.
which means that they have two modalities that I married together.
Right.
So peer run practices have been recognized by SAMHSA as an evidence based practice where peer recovery specialists are people with lived experiences that help others with lived experiences. Um, so there are people with experiences with mental health or substance use struggles that help others who have similar life experiences.
Right.
Um, Animal assisted therapy or activities are animals have like this magical component to them
Mhm.
where they just being around them can raise your oxytocin levels, which is a natural occurring hormone within your body that releases feel good hormones.
Right.
And they also reduce the cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone in your body. So they're like a natural medication.
Mhm.
So if you're just around animals, um, it helps you feel better.
Yeah.
So combining the peer recovery specialist with the animals, it just is like a natural feel good
Mhm.
happening.
Right.
So that's my idea.
It's
So
brilliant.
I'm I'm trying to get the facilitators out here that I get on board with Rise Phoenix Rise to get there's a program out here um, with the Colorado animal assisted. It's it's just not even 45 minutes away from where we're located,
Mhm.
and they have a program where they like teach animal assisted activities,
Right.
and they can train um, lay personnel in activity like animal assisted activities.
Right.
So I'll get them trained and then we'll be good to go, and it's just a matter of time and funding and we'll be good.
As it
And
always is.
yeah, yeah. But so we're doing good.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I mean, it's hard enough to start a nonprofit, right? That, and get people on board and, create bring your vision to reality. It's another thing entirely to move that nonprofit to another state and then start all over again. I mean, you're not starting exactly all over again because you already built the foundation, but it's incredible that you have, been able to get this thing up and running now in 2 states.
Yeah, and then the pandemic kind of
Yeah. Mhm.
compounded the difficulties.
Believe me,
Yeah,
it's been quite a year. It really,
yeah,
really has. It
yeah.
just, so, when we talked about you coming on the show and like what you would talk about, you really wanted to talk about peer recovery specialists in general and, some concepts and ideas around that. And I think that's fantastic because um, I think a lot of people don't know that this is a thing. They don't know that, the number of individuals who are out working in our communities who are providing this service. It may also be that, there are some folks out there who, would like to become a peer specialist. And, so, where do you want to start? How do you want to,
Well,
begin this conversation on this issue or
people
talk?
want to work. I mean
Yes.
that is like a universal thing.
Yep.
The World Health Organization in 2019 um, stated that um, that is like one of the overall overarching goals of people is that people want to work, and that is not different for people with um, with mental health or substance use challenges.
Yep.
It is a norm for people to want to seek employment as part of their life satisfaction, and it helps them sustain an enjoyable life. People with lived experiences in mental health struggles are no exception. One avenue some people take to get this sustainable, enjoyable life through work is to become a peer recovery specialist. These professionals have lived experiences and they aim to help um, others with lived experiences. And they do this um, through training, supervision, and certification. Um, the peer recovery specialists are associated with a plethora of positive outcomes, such as improvements in service recipients' functioning, housing stability, quality of life, satisfaction with care, and personal recovery, and reducing number of hospitalization days and use of crisis services. Um, but a number of people go through the training to become a peer recovery specialist, but they don't go through the final steps to get certification. Like in Virginia alone in 2020, 482 people went through the training, but only 168 of those became certified. That's only
Wow.
that's only 34.85%.
Right.
Um, so my dissertation, I'm in school to get my PhD. And one of the things I'm looking at is trying to figure out why that is. Why are people going through the training to get certified, but they do not follow through to get certified? Um, and I'm looking at like some of the encouragements to help people go through to get these these this training, but yet what are the barriers or the impediments that keep them from getting the certification?
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple different things um, that I found um, through my research, um, and I wanted to talk about that. Um, One of the things is the lack of credibility.
Right.
You know, a lot of people feel that they go through this training, but they don't feel that they're credible. Like the mental health professionals don't see them as really a part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't get the mutual respect as part of the team um, because they have the lived experience.
Right.
So they there's a kind of triple identity that peer recovery specialists have. They are one, a peer,
Mm-hmm.
two, a provider,
Mm-hmm.
and three, a client.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of puts them in a position where um, they're helping their peers.
Mm-hmm.
So they have like this discrepancy, like how do I, how do I, like they don't know how to act because they're a peer, but they're also a provider, but they're also a client, so they have to negotiate um, how, who am I, you
What's my
know,
role in this moment?
right.
Right.
So that's another problem. So first they have the credibility problem, then they have the role confusion problem. Then that those are two of the issues. And then there's the stigma,
Right.
you know, and not only is there societal stigma, but there's also self stigma.
Right.
So society places on them, stigma about being mentally ill, and they're labeled mentally ill, or they have substance use issues.
Mm-hmm.
So they have this stigma placed upon them, but then they start placing it upon themselves.
Right.
So then there's this phenomenon called the why try effect.
Okay.
And that's like a major phenomenon where they have this label placed upon them by society. So then they're like, well, why should I even try?
Right. A sense of
And
learned helplessness.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so they stop trying. And that's where I think the major part of this lack of going forward to the certification thing comes in.
Right.
So they fail to go to certification because why should they even try?
Right.
If they're always going to be labeled as mentally ill,
Mhm.
why should I even try? Why should I even go forward and bother getting certified when one, the mental health community is not going to ever accept me.
Mhm.
Two, um, I'm only ever going to be seen as mentally ill,
Mhm.
so why should I even try? You know,
How much, Tracy, do you think that, I know that it can be challenging to get the hours, get the certification, get connected with an organization. How much of, sort of the lack of support and, and infrastructure around this do you think contributes to the sort of reinforcing of that why try mentality?
I think it has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
I think that society's view, and um, the lack of support,
Mm-hmm.
um, and the the ideas surrounding um, peer support specialists
Right.
and the professional disrecognition or
Mm-hmm.
unrecognition. You know, the fact that the fact that insurance does not cover it a lot of times,
Right.
and the the um the pay, you know, um for peer support specialists
Right.
is not up to par with like other professionals. It's not com- compensation is not equal.
Right.
The equity is not there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it has a lot to do with it.
And when you're recognizing that or acknowledging that, you know, this is an evidence-based practice that shows that very often having interaction with an individual with lived experience, to sort of help you and collaborate with you can be one of the most effective uh, ways to help someone, gain control over their, mental health circumstances, to feel that recovery is possible. And so to have it continue to be undervalued as a a useful part of the treatment team is a real slap in the face,
Yeah,
because it's proven time and time and time again that having that person standing aside you saying, look, I've been there, and I get it, I see you, and here's the path, here's the help that you need, here are the choices that are going to help you get more in control of your circumstances.
right. It's it's
So
it's a big it's a big problem, and I don't know the answer because a lot of the discussion is um, from the professionals
right.
is by disclosing a lot of your personal story.
Mm-hmm.
It's breaking boundaries,
Right.
and it goes against the professionals
Code of ethics.
way
Code of
of
ethics. Yeah,
doing
yeah.
things.
Sure.
And so that's a little bit of the problem.
Mhm.
They say that, well, that's not the way it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And but it's like you said, it's been proven to be effective,
Right. Right.
you know.
I,
So
I
how do
think that
you
boundaries, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I do think that, I mean, I am quote unquote a professional in the
Oh
world.
no, I'm not saying anything wrong about
Oh
professionals.
no, no. But this is wrong about professionals. And so I feel like as a professional, quote unquote, I have to speak up about this because I think that and I've had this conversation a lot, with other professionals and with students and, you know, and professors in my master's degree program and all of that. And that is that we are doing ourselves and our clients a great disservice by making any kind of rigid blanket statement about, you know, personal disclosure being a bad thing. If personal disclosure helps you and your client feel as if you're on a level playing field, and your personal disclosure doesn't mean that you're turning it into your therapy session,
Right,
then there's nothing wrong with disclosure. There's nothing wrong with a person saying, I'm a professional, but I'm also a human, and I too have faced these complicated issues. I too, struggle to, make sure that I take my meds correctly. I too, struggle with anxiety. I Because then it uh alleviates that sort of power differential, right? We don't
uh-huh.
want that. We don't want to our clients to feel like they're, beneath us.
And at the same time, even with peer recovery specialists, there's a time and a place to stop disclosing.
Right. Of
You know,
course.
there's a time and a place to stop making it your
About you.
story.
Yes.
You know,
100%.
peer recovery specialists aren't supposed to disclose their whole story
No.
all the time.
Of course.
You
Of
know,
course. But
it,
when we don't talk about the nuances of these boundaries, then we're not serving ourselves, and we're not fully serving our clients either, because it's not an
exactly,
all or nothing kind of, this is a blurry situation, so we shouldn't talk about it at all. We should just,
exactly,
that's not an intellectually honest uh endeavor. So, which is why
exactly.
it's important for us to have these conversations, because, we kind of unpack all of it and we say, okay, yeah, it's a gray area, as it were. And, so how do we hold one another and ourselves accountable in these situations to, to be self-aware, and to, rather than to just say, well, I don't do that. I don't ever talk about myself at all ever in a session.
Right. Because we all are human.
We're human.
We all are. And we
Yeah.
all we all are peers.
Yep.
I mean,
Yes.
even if you are a professional, you're a
Yes.
peer
Yep.
because we all have experiences.
Hmm.
We all have lived experiences.
Yep. And there's no human on this planet who hasn't struggled with something.
Exactly. And that's my point.
Hmm. Yep. So I'm sorry. I totally just, like, you were in the middle of like a statement,
I
and
don't
I
even
just
remember what my statement.
railroaded right
I
over
don't even
you.
remember my statement, so it doesn't matter because we're all good. So
So, what would you like to see happen sort of systemically to better support the development of peer recovery specialists as a profession?
I would like to see somehow encouragements for the development, like people who go through the training, to let them know that they are enough and that it is okay, and to help them go through that process to get to certification and get into leadership roles and get to help them, because when we get peers into leadership roles we can change policy
Right.
and we can change the way that peer recovery specialists are looked upon and treated. And then we can change this stigma. And that's what is going to change
Mhm.
the way people are looked upon, if we change stigma
Yep.
and defeat stigma.
Defeat stigma. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what is your dissertation and like where do you go with it? What are you doing with, your path? And that sounded really challenging, and that's not how I meant it. I just want to know what your plans are, where you're going. I'm not like, well, what are you doing to make it? I know what you're doing. You're amazing. But tell us more about where you see yourself going on this path. Good grief, words are hard sometimes.
Well, I want to like show what, that this is a thing, that the why try effect is in fact what is why try effect in the eroding goals archetype, which I didn't talk about, but that's basically right around along the same lines, which is basically it was it's an organizational thing where people set lower goals to make sure they meet them. So
Mm-hmm.
like they set out like this goal, like, oh, I'm going to do this, but then they see that they're not going to do that, so they start like setting lower goals to
Mm-hmm.
make sure they're going to meet them.
Mm-hmm.
So they start eroding their goals.
Yeah.
So like let's say I say, oh, I'm going to get a full-time job, and then they're like, oh, I'm not going to get a full-time job. So, oh, I'm just going to get a part-time job.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm just going to work 10 hours a week. Oh, I'm just going to. So they start eroding their goals, so that they don't get the ultimate goal that they really want. They just settle for less,
Right.
you know. So it's right along the same lines as the why try effect.
Mm-hmm.
They settle for less.
Right.
So it's right along the same lines. So I want people to get what they really want.
Mm-hmm.
They really want certification.
Right.
They really want that. Why should they settle for less?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and wanting people to get what they need and providing them the individual support that they need to get there needs to go hand in hand with what we were talking about before, and that is sort of structures and systems and policies that support this. Because if you're a person who has all of these goals for yourself and you've done all of your due diligence, and then you go out into a world that repeatedly either changes the rules or moves the goalpost, or otherwise isn't is creating barriers to you achieving your goals. At some point you're just like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go for something that I can actually achieve. And
Right.
that's not a function of the individual's failure. But one of the things that we talk about a lot here is that because of stigma, because of that sort of consistent underestimation of people with mental health diagnoses, um, people are it's so easy for systems to throw people away, right? And to just say, oh, well, it's they didn't reach their goal, not because the system is broken, but because they're somehow fundamentally flawed as a result of their own diagnosis.
Right.
And then nobody asks the bigger questions. Nobody asks the questions about, well, what was in place? Who was there to develop, or to provide guidance? Who was there to, walk the path alongside them? Who was, where were the organizations that were offering, opportunities to gain those hours and to maybe come in and do something that had never been done before? Where are those people? So anyway, that was a tangent that I just went on, but
It was a great tangent.
but it's just we just it's so easy for people to be underestimated, and then you don't ask the bigger questions about where are the gaps that can be filled.
Right. Like I've heard peer recovery specialists um who want the systems to change to allow for like less than minimum wage to be allowed, just so that they can get paid, so that they can have. And I'm like, no,
Right.
no, that's like that's undermining your ability. That's undermining your worth.
And undervaluing your profession and the identity of your profession and all the other people that are, but it's that, the danger of low expectations. And, over time, if somebody tells you you're not worth anything for long enough, you're going to believe it.
But they're like, but it would be something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but it's not, no,
Yeah.
no.
Mhm. So
It,
how do you help that? How do you have that conversation with people? That's a hard conversation to have.
that is a hard conversation to have. And I haven't figured out, I haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
I tell them, I'm like, that perpetuates the undervaluing of peer recovery specialists.
I was for a long time worked as a QMHP.
Hmm.
And it's another sort of gray area in the mental health world where, it's a designation for anybody who doesn't know. It's qualified mental health professional. There are, you're required to be under supervision. You're required to, have a certain number of hours that you fulfill working directly with individuals with a mental health diagnosis. It is a a mental health profession, but it does not have probably not even to the degree that peer recovery specialist has, it does not have any kind of professional infrastructure. There is no governing body for qualified mental health professionals. There is no code of ethics for qualified mental health professionals. You just sort of operate under, the codes of ethics for professional counselors or social workers or wherever I guess you feel most closely aligned. But it's so easy for QMHPs to undervalue themselves, to not consider themselves to be at within a profession that
Hmm.
they need to guard and treat, with a certain amount of respect, because the larger community doesn't really have a lot of respect for it. It's
Right.
generally undervalued. And so it's difficult to get people to sort of buy into protecting their professional identity when their professional identity is sort of undervalued, across the board.
Yeah.
And so, what what does what needs to happen, I guess, internally in these little subsections? How do we create, like, um boards of, it's not, I want to say board of counseling, but boards that oversee this information or this uh professional path, create codes of ethics, create, the kinds of things that are necessary in order for us
Well,
to feel like we better value ourselves and the
there,
work that we do.
there is a code of ethics for peer recovery specialists.
Good. Glad to
There
hear
is.
that.
And there is the Office of Recovery Services
Okay.
that oversees peer recovery specialists in Virginia.
Good.
I'm not sure about in Colorado. I just haven't had the education for
Sure.
Colorado yet.
Sure.
And
You've been dealing with, a handful of things.
yeah,
Just a couple.
just a couple. And so and there's INAP, the National Peer
Hmm.
Recovery Specialist,
Right.
thing. So it's up and coming. It's relatively new
Sure.
in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
It's a relatively new profession, and so it's up and coming. I want to see peer recovery specialists to honor themselves, and to know that, um, I mean, the statistics are just so dismal. I mean, 34.85% only to get certified after going through the training.
Hmm. Yep.
They go through all that hard work to get trained, and then they don't follow through to get certified.
Yeah.
That just seems disheartening.
It is.
Why go through the training if you're not going to get certified?
Mhm. Yep.
And then I wonder, is it because they're not going to get certified because there's not the jobs available?
Mhm.
Maybe we need to have more jobs available.
How does that happen?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm just, I'm always thinking on a systemic level. I obviously I want people to value themselves, and they should. And, um, I, uh, it just can be so disheartening to have that set of expectations and then go out into the world and just meet, barrier after barrier after barrier. So
I think part of the problem is the insurance.
yeah,
You know,
insurance seems to be a problem across the board for like
mm,
all healthcare needs of any kind.
mm. I think that Medicare is actually considering reimbursing for peer. I
Really?
know Medicaid in Virginia, as long as you have a counselor, professional counselor supervising you
Hmm.
that's on the Medicaid panel,
Right.
then you can reimburse for Medicaid
Right.
in Virginia. So that's a plus.
That's excellent.
That was
Yeah,
as
I mean,
of July
Medicare.
of that was as of July of 2017, I think.
Okay. Yeah, because Medicare doesn't even reimburse licensed professional counselors.
Yeah, I think it's in the book. It's in the works.
That's I know that the American Counseling Association and the Virginia Counselors Association are advocating hard for that to be Medicare for for LPCs, um,
Yeah,
because up until very recently there was not as much advocacy, but social workers, licensed clinical social workers, were the only therapy providers that like mental health therapy providers that could be reimbursed by Medicare.
really.
Yep. So if you're an LPC, you can't, there's a whole population of people that you can't serve. And it's this enormous population of, older, aging individuals
Exactly.
who need a
Yes,
lot of support with mental health care. And
exactly.
there's a huge shortage of available resources because there is this whole group of professionals and peer recovery specialists as well who can't provide the support even though they're trained, and some are incredibly passionate about working with older populations. So
Exactly.
it's really, really, that can be really, really challenging. So I'm hopeful for that, that advocacy. um, as we wind down our conversation, what is most important for you to make our audience aware of, or for you to sort of sign off on?
Just that if you are a peer recovery specialist or looking to become a peer recovery specialist, don't give up.
Mm,
Don't give up. And if you do start out on that path, and you start to feel that why try feeling, reach out to someone and get the encouragement that you need, because we need you in this world. And um we other people need you.
yeah.
The service recipients need you. And we need to combat this stigma. And and I don't know how else to say it other than you are enough.
Yes.
And and we got to combat this why try.
It's so, so many members of our If You Could See Me family are peer recovery specialists. So many. some of the most remarkable advocates, speakers, storytellers I have ever encountered. You know, and it is an incredibly valuable professional identity, that has so much to offer. And so I, as a counselor in residence, as a emerging therapist, I am committing to you that, I will do my part as a
Thank you.
representative of this part of the field, to to highlight and lift up peer recovery specialists, their role, the value that they bring to a recovery team, to a treatment team, and the science. It's there. It's the proof is in the pudding. This is an effective tool, and instead of isolating and pushing away, we need to be inclusive, and bring in as many voices as possible that can help a person to find peace and have the life that they want to have.
It's all about diversity too.
That's right. That's right. That experience, that welcoming of different experiences, different types of education, different points of view. Absolutely. Well, Traci, I think you're unbelievable. I can't believe you're getting your PhD in the midst of all the things, and you continue to inspire and educate so many people, to support them through their recovery, to bring animals into people's lives. Um, and I just am so grateful for the work that you do, even so far away. I'm glad we are part of the same tribe.
Thank you. I am too.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.